Red R. Motley, a great businessman from the 40s, said that nothing happens every day until someone buys or sells something. And in reality, that's all that business is. Now, business has also made millionaires of millions of people. Let's see how easy it is to do. I'm randomly going to select 100 of you to receive your own gold-plated coin. I used to carry around a gold coin kind of similar to this one right here. Not to spend, but because it reminded me of wealth. And it was a symbol for me of what was to come and what I could achieve financially. As a thank you for your support, I want to give you a little piece of motivation to remind you of what you can achieve and the results that you can get in life. So, when this channel hits 500 subscribers, I'm randomly going to select 100 of you to receive your own gold-plated coin. These coins are real currency from around the world that have been plated in 100 mils of fine gold. Now, this might not make you rich, but it just might give you enough inspiration, as sometimes just holding a little bit of wealth in your hands can make you feel a certain way and drive you to go out and achieve the best results. My hope is that you not only achieve all of your financial goals, but also that you then take that knowledge and go out and pass it back to the world. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button, like this video, and you are automatically in the running. Nothing happens until we buy or sell something. What exactly does that mean? That means we wake up every day and we go out into the world and we're gonna have to spend our hard-earned money on something. That means we're gonna have to engage in the business of business. You are either going to buy something from someone, sell something to someone, and that's all that business really is. And that's what he meant by that. I'd like to take a quick moment and just thank you guys for being here, because I'm really enjoying doing these talks, and I'd like to remind you to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the topic you're watching today. So when you go out into the world and you engage in the business of business, there's probably a business owner behind that, right? When you go to Sam's Pizza, well, that's Sam's first pizza shop, right? And Bob's Bikes is Bob started a bicycle repair place, and now he buys and sells bikes and maybe does repairs. I mean, that's how businesses get started. Someone has an idea and all of a sudden they turn it into a legitimate business. I'm going to talk a little bit about the basics of business today, because I do believe, being a business owner myself, that anyone really can start a business if they want to, and it's a little bit simpler than you think. But one of the things I'm not going to talk about is that you may have to go to college to start a business, or that you should apply to a business school so you learn about business. I'm not going to teach you how to write a 60-page business plan and a dissertation on pitch decks and how to go after venture capital so you have plenty of money to start your business. What I am going to tell you is the reality of business. And the reality of business is kind of a harsh one if you're thinking about getting into it. And I don't mean to discourage anyone, but when you know everything that's going on, knowledge is power. And exploring both sides of the coin is really important if you're thinking about getting into business. So for starters, what is the reality? Well, 70% of businesses actually go out of business in under 10 years. 25% alone go out of business in the first year. They can't seem to make it past 12 months. 50% of all new businesses expire within 5 years. So why these big numbers? Like, why do 7 out of 10 businesses fail within 10 years? There's a lot of reasons. I mean, I myself have been in business for a long time. I have one business that's been going for over 30 years. I have a business that is about to hit 16 years this year. And I've started some smaller businesses that have came and went or got sold off over time. And I'm currently running about 5 businesses. The reason why a business may go out of business is maybe it's lack of funding. Maybe they're not doing enough business. In other words, there's not enough foot traffic. Maybe cash flow is not good. Maybe they have no budget. Or maybe they just don't understand their market. Maybe they haven't done a good marketing plan and they just don't understand how to reel new customers in, or their current marketing is not working. What I'm getting at is that the traditional way of starting a business, of maybe going to college and going to a business school and doing your business plan and figuring all this stuff out, doesn't always work. It certainly doesn't guarantee success. That's why 7 out of 10 businesses fail. I have a little bit different way. Being in business as long as I've been in and had some success, and having a business as long as 30 plus years, I've always believed in doing it a little bit differently. Traditional is okay, and if that's the path you're on, awesome. But I'm more of a bootstrap sort of guy, sort of a guy that just picks myself up by my own volition and sees what I can do on my own. In other words, I want to test the waters with as little risk as possible, as little overhead as possible. So I'm going to bootstrap. And this is a business method that's been tried and tested over thousands of years, not dozens or hundreds or anything like that. Long before business schools exist and anybody knew what a marketing plan was, there were street vendors in Rome just operating out of a cart, selling their wares or their vegetables or their fruits or their horse fixtures, right? So whatever you need, blacksmiths doing repairs right there on the side of the road. I mean, that is a business, and these things have been around for thousands of years. So how did they do it? They bootstrapped. They started and they did it themselves, meaning they used their own time, their own money, and they poured into it something called sweat equity. Why is that so important? Sometimes when I'm doing a talk, I ask people if they have children. I say, raise your hands if you have a baby at home, whatever your baby's age may be. You can have a 20-year-old baby, right? If you have a child, the thing that most parents feel, or all parents really, is that their safety, their benefit, their lives are almost more important than yours, meaning you'd throw yourself in front of a speeding car or a bullet to save your baby. They're your baby, and you care about their existence, their happiness, their livelihood, and everything. It's so important to you. Believe it or not, when you start a business from the ground up, it's exactly the same way. It's your baby. You see, I've had employees come and go over the years, and I've seen when business is good, everybody flocks around and everybody wants to work or work for you or with you. But when things dry up and you have a little slump and maybe the economy's bad and maybe you're not selling as well and business is slow, people run for the hills. Why? It's not their baby. When it's your baby, you have a passion, you have a drive, it's your idea, and there's something special that happens the first time you make a sale. It doesn't matter what it is, whether you're opening up a coffee shop or you're doing a service business and going to people's homes to do something. The first time you get paid, you get a paycheck for doing what it is that you do, that you're good at, an idea that you started, meaning your business. It feels incredible. And at that point, you've birthed your baby. That's your business. So you're going to do whatever it takes to save it. And when, the shite hits the fan and the economy's bad and people aren't buying, you're going to scramble to figure out how to make the changes it takes to make business happen and to keep your baby afloat, because that's what you do. When it's not your baby, when you're not as invested in it because maybe you got investors, maybe you do have venture capital. I've seen more businesses fail after their 60-page business plan and hiring a CFO and a CEO and a marketing expert and use all venture capital money. It's not really their baby. It is, but it isn't. And if the shite hits the fan and things tend to go downhill in a bad market, well, they tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater because it's not really theirs. So you feel differently when it's your baby. So there are certain steps that you're going to have to take. Yes, there is a step-by-step method if you're going to start a business. You have to have some capital. You have to have a plan. You have to know what you're going to do. And of course, you have to know who your audience is. Like, you have to know how to market to your specific audience if you're going to succeed. But see, these are all things you can do yourself. You don't have to go to business school for that. And many of the most successful business owners actually haven't gone to business school. They've studied in the school of hard knocks, and they've learned on the streets of doing business. These are all things that you can do to bootstrap yourself up and start your own business. You have to ask some important questions, and this is probably the most important part of what I'm going to say today, and they probably don't teach this in most business classes. If you're going to start a business, you should solve a problem. That's the most important thing. What problem does your business solve? You see, people are out there and they have issues, right? They need childcare because they have to go to work and they need someone to watch their small child at home. That's a problem. If we put too much trash out on the street and the trash truck stopped coming and picking it up, well, very quickly, that would be a problem. If you have a pipe that burst in your basement and it's flooding your home, that is a problem. Now, when you have a business, if it solves a problem, you have a greater chance of success. So I always tell people to look around, see what they're good at, and see what problems that society needs solving, because the bigger problem you solve, the more you stand to make. Now, sometimes people come to me and they have an idea and they might say, well, I've always liked figurines. I collect figurines and, I want you to invest in this thing where I'm going to come up with a golden cabbage figurine. And I say, well, that's great. You're into figurines, but I don't see what problem a golden cabbage figurine solves. That falls more into something that's fad, something that's passing, and something that might carry a little bit of interest right now, like a Beanie Baby, let's say. But as soon as the fad ends and people lose interest, that goes away because it's not solving a big enough problem. Maybe it's filling a small void, maybe something people would buy for the holidays or as a gift or whatever, but it's not a big enough problem. Not every idea, in other words, solves a problem. And that's okay, but if you can solve a problem, that's the first way that your business is going to be on solid ground. The second thing I ask myself when I'm starting a business is, can I do it better? In other words, can I do it better than my competition? If I was starting a laundromat, and I have no stake in the game, I do not own laundromats, but one of the things I might do is I might just go around and I might take my laundry to 10, 12, 15 laundromats, as far reach out as I could, and I would learn from them. I'd see who gave me the best service, who had the best pricing, maybe who had the best staff. Were they more friendly? Did I get a quicker return at one laundromat versus the other? Did they do a better job at one laundromat versus the other? And I would make a list of everything that I felt was a benefit about working with certain companies, and then everything that I knew was a negative about working with others, and try and sweep that right off the table. Like, we're not going to do that. In other words, whatever business I'm entering, I would like it to have a chance of making it. Of course, it's my baby. So I want to do it better than my competition, not just as good or be the next guy down the block doing the same thing. And most people don't think about that. They just think, oh, I'm going to, compete. And how are they going to compete? Well, that leads us to number 3. They think they're going to compete on price. Price is not always the issue, but value is. So the question I ask myself after, can I solve a problem? Can I do it better than my competition? Is, can I supply a better value? What do I mean by that? If I'm not talking about price, because notice how I didn't say cheaper, I said supply a better value. I'll give you an example. When I lived on the East Coast, I had Porsches. I've been a big fan of Porsche my whole life, and it was one of the first sports cars that I was able to acquire as a young man. And at one point, I had 2 or 3 of these things, and even though I still own Porsches and have migrated to the Italians, I still love Porsche, and I had great Porsche mechanics on the East Coast. I took it to this particular place that was recommended to me, and for many years, literally over 20 plus years, these guys worked on my Porsches off and on whenever they needed something. Well, one day I drove by this place, and they were closer to my house. I mean, massively closer. And I called them up, and their rates were actually better. They had a way lower hourly rate than my guys were charging me to work on my Porsches. I decided to try them out. I had an issue that had actually come up before in other cars, so I kind of knew what it was, but I brought it by and said, here's what I think it is. Could you guys take a look and fix it? At the end of the day, they called me after having the car for a few days. I got the car back, and of course, I'm 3 blocks away, and at the very first light, the car stalled out again and did what it was doing. And I brought it back, And of course, they didn't admit any wrongdoing or guilt. They said, oh, well, we fixed the problem. This must be something else. This is, another thing. And they took the car back. Now, not only had they taken more time, and because they had taken more time, they actually took more money than it would have cost me to have it fixed at the more expensive service place. But now they got the car back a second time and racked up another bill. Also, they kind of had a little bit of an arrogance about them. Sometimes that happens, when you're working in the exotic car field. But, these guys were really like, oh, well, we're, Porsche and Ferrari mechanics, so we're amazing. Whereas the place that I've been taking in all those years, they weren't like that at all. I mean, they would take the car in. They never acted like they even knew it was wrong. They'd say, just leave us the keys. We'll call you when we know what's going on. And they always fix the problem. They're just very honorable, mature people. These guys were more arrogant and, they didn't end up fixing the problem right away. They certainly didn't catch it the first time, even after I told them what it was. And they ended up charging me twice and charging me more money than I would have paid with my guys. So at the end of the day, I decided that where I'd been taking the car to for service might be more expensive if we look at it by the hour. But what I'm getting in terms of value was just so much more. So that mattered, and that's a big question that I like to answer when I start a business is how can I provide better value? So I want to leave you with this. Anyone can start a business. You don't need to have money. You just need to have an idea. You need to have a little bit of time, and you really have to make it your baby. There are ways to bootstrap your business and just little by little use your own funds to kind of start it. And you're also not going to leave yourself in a hole from day one. That's why a lot of businesses fail, is they start out with too much debt because they've been spending other people's money. All it takes to build a business at the end of the day is be a person who has an idea, a passion, a drive, and believe me, from the smallest business you've ever walked into to the largest business you've ever known, that's all it's ever taken, and that might just be you. My name is Daniel F. Margasa. You are watching The Almost Criminal Millionaire, and if you enjoy learning about the topic of finance, money, and the health and wealth of your bank account, then please like and subscribe for more.